Elias Grant had always believed that the end of Earth would be the biggest shock of his life. He had survived the burning skies, the collapsing cities, and the silent death that followed when the alien fleets blocked every escape path. He had watched his world fall apart piece by piece, until only memories were left, memories of a place he could never go back to. But nothing, absolutely nothing, prepared him for the moment. He was dragged into a shimmering hall of living crystal. Standing before the one creature every surviving human feared more than death itself, the alien queen of the Varix Empire. The hall was impossibly huge. The walls glowed like frozen lightning, pulsing with gentle blue light. Strange flowers floated in the air, releasing tiny sparks with every tremble. Elias felt small, smaller than he'd ever felt before, like a grain of dust inside a universe he didn't belong in. 2 armored Varix guards pushed him forward, their grip cold and strong. Elias stumbled but didn't fall. He refused to show weakness. He was tired, scarred, and exhausted from running, but he still had his pride. Even if humans were almost extinct, he would not bow easily. At the end of the hall, the queen stood on a raised platform. She was taller than any human, her body shaped from smooth silver skin that reflected the crystal lights like drawn starlight. Her eyes glowed with a deep, ancient power, eyes that had seen wars far older than humanity's existence. Elias had seen images of her before, broadcasted during the invasion. But standing in front of her, it was different. It was terrifying. His heart pounded and a cold sweat slid down his neck. His throat tightened as if invisible hands squeezed it. The guards forced him to his knees. He clenched his fists. He refused to bow his head. The queen lifted one elegant hand, and the guards instantly stepped back. A strange silence settled over the room. Elias could hear nothing but his own breathing, fast, shallow, uncertain. For a long moment, she simply stared at him. Her expression was impossible to read. No anger, no coldness, no cruelty, just a deep, unreadable focus. When she finally spoke, her voice echoed through the chamber, soft and resonant at the same time. "Human Elias Grant, do you know why you are here?" Elias didn't answer at first. His mouth felt dry. He had been captured during a raid. He expected to be executed, used for experiments, or thrown into some alien pit to die slowly. Being summoned before the queen could only mean something worse. "I don't know," he said quietly, forcing strength into his voice. "But killing me won't bring back the humans you already destroyed." The queen tilted her head slightly, almost in curiosity. "Killing you?" she repeated. "If that was my desire, you would not be standing here." Elias blinked. He wasn't expecting that. The queen descended the steps slowly, her long silver cloak trailing behind her like liquid moonlight. When she stopped a few feet away from him, he felt a strange warmth on his skin, like sunlight filtered through glass. "You risked your life," she said softly, "to save 3 of my guards during the explosion at the research chambers." Elias stiffened. He remembered the blast, the screaming, the falling debris. He hadn't planned to help anyone, human or alien. But when he saw the guards trapped under the collapsing structure, he moved without thinking. He pushed them out before the fire consumed the room. "You could have escaped," the queen continued. "Yet you chose to protect them." "I just reacted," Elias muttered. "Anyone would have." "No," she said gently. "Not anyone." Her voice softened in a way that made Elias uncomfortable. She wasn't speaking like a ruler. She was speaking like someone burdened with fear. Real fear. "My people face a darkness," she said. "A sickness we cannot cure. It is stealing our young, one by one." Elias looked up, confused. What did this have to do with him? The queen's eyes dimmed with pain, something he never expected to see. "Have called you here for a purpose that only your kind can fulfill." Elias felt a chill run down his spine. "What do you want from me?" he whispered. The queen took a slow breath. Her voice trembled. Just once, enough for Elias to feel the weight behind it. "I want you to save my last child." Elias did not speak for several seconds. He simply stared at the queen, uncertain if he had heard her correctly. Saving her child? A human? Him? It sounded unreal, almost like a cruel trick. The queen turned slowly and motioned for him to follow. Her long cloak shimmered with every step, and the floating lights around them parted as if they feared touching her. Elias hesitated, but the guards behind him nudged him forward. Not roughly this time, almost respectfully, as if the queen's words had changed something in the air. They walked through a narrow corridor, where the crystal walls dimmed to a soft purple. The silence between them was heavy. Elias wanted to ask 1,000 questions, but his throat remained tight, his mind spinning. Why him? Why was a queen asking help from one of the last humans alive? Finally, she spoke without looking at him. My empire is built on strength. For generations we believed weakness was a curse. Her voice echoed in the hallway, calm yet filled with something Elias never expected: regret. But we were wrong. Elias frowned slightly. The queen continued walking, her steps slow, controlled. A sickness has taken root among our young. It spreads through their veins like cold fire. None have survived beyond their first growth cycle. Elias felt a strange heaviness in his chest. He didn't know much about Varric's children, but he knew that losing even one life, especially a young one, was tragedy. Losing many was unbearable. The queen stopped in front of a sealed door glowing with a faint red symbol. My last child, she whispered, is dying. Those words carried a weight that shook. Elias, a queen who commanded fleets across the stars, now stood helpless before a door. A mother, not a ruler. Elias swallowed hard. I'm sorry, he said quietly. He wasn't sure if she needed sympathy, but it felt right to offer it. The queen closed her eyes briefly. Our best healers, our strongest warriors, our brightest minds, none could ease his suffering. His body cannot endure the treatment required to stop the sickness. The door slid open with a soft hum, revealing a dim chamber filled with gentle blue mist. Elias stepped inside, feeling the strange warmth of the air against his skin. It smelled like flowers he couldn't name. In the center of the room floated a small cradle of shimmering metal. Inside it lay a tiny figure, curled weakly. His skin glowed like a fading ember, flickering with each shallow breath. Elias froze. This was the child of the ruler of the strongest alien empire, and yet, he looked just as fragile as any human baby. Maybe even more fragile. He looks. Elias hesitated, not wanting to offend. Like he's fighting every second to stay alive, the queen finished. Her voice cracked ever so slightly. The sound hit Elias harder than any blow could. He turned to her, shocked by how vulnerable she appeared. The fierce warrior queen, feared across galaxies, now looked like a mother drowning in fear. Why me? Elias finally asked. I'm just a human. What can I possibly do? The queen stepped closer, her eyes locked on his. You humans are strange creatures. Elias Grant, you survive things that should kill you. You adapt. You endure pain your bodies were never meant to bear. Elias frowned. So you want to study me? Use me as an experiment again? No, she said sharply. Not study. Not torture. You misunderstand. She placed her silver hand gently on the side of the cradle. The treatment that could save him is deadly. No Varric's child can survive even the first wave of pain. But a human. Her voice softened. A human might survive it long enough to shield him. Long enough for the cure to take. Elias stared at her, stunned. You want me to take the pain? Transfer it into me. Yes, her answer was immediate, but not cold. It was filled with desperation, fear, and something else, a fragile hope. He looked again at the child. The little prince's tiny chest rose and fell so softly that Elias feared it might stop at any moment. Memories flashed through his mind, his little sister coughing in the evacuation bunker. Her small hand gripping his until it suddenly didn't. He blinked hard, pushing back the sting in his eyes. Will you kill me afterward? He asked, voice low. The queen shook her head. If you survive, you will be honored. If you die... She paused, her voice breaking. Then you will die saving the future of an entire people. Elias looked at the child again, then at the trembling hope in the queen's eyes. After a long silence, he whispered, I'll try. The chamber was quiet, except for the faint hum of strange machines surrounding the cradle. Elias's eyes never left the small figure inside. The little prince's body flickered weakly, glowing in pale silver like a dying star. Every shallow breath made Elias's chest ache. The queen motioned for him to sit beside the cradle. Her eyes, bright and painful, stayed on his face. The child will not survive without the treatment, she said softly. It will hurt. More than any human should endure. Elias's stomach twisted. He had survived war, starvation, and alien experiments. He had endured the void of space, freezing and alone. But looking at this child, he realized the pain they expected him to endure might be worse than anything he had ever known. A small figure, no bigger than his forearm, was lying helpless in front of him. His mind flashed back to memories of his own little sister, lost to sickness years ago. She had clutched his hand, whispering for him to stay with her. He had promised he would protect her. But he had failed. Elias clenched his fists. He would not fail again. The royal doctor approached, her body tall and thin, her voice calm but serious. The treatment requires a direct link between your nervous system and the child's. Every surge of pain, every shock his body receives will be transferred to you. Elias looked down at the tiny prince. How bad is it? The doctor's silver eyes met his. You will feel every spike of fever, every burn of his sickness. You may lose consciousness. Some humans do not survive the first hour. Elias swallowed. His mouth was dry. He could feel fear curling around his chest, trying to crush him. But then he saw the child's weak eyelids flutter. He felt a spark of something he hadn't felt in years, hope. I will do it, he said, his voice quiet but firm. The queen knelt beside him. Her hand hovered over his shoulder. No one else could do this, she whispered. I trusted you because you are human. You are stronger than you realize. Elias forced a small nod. He didn't feel strong. Not yet. But strength wasn't just about surviving, it was about choice. He chose to endure, for the child, for the queen, for the future. They strapped him to a narrow biochair. Wires and glowing cables ran from the chair to the floating cradle. The machines hummed louder as the connection was made. Elias felt a strange energy brushing against his skin. It was not cold, not hot, it was alive. The child stirred, letting out a faint, high-pitched whimper. Elias's heart clenched. He reached out slowly, placing a trembling hand near the cradle. I've got you, he whispered. I won't let you go. The doctor activated the treatment. Light shot along the cables and entered Elias's body. Pain exploded in his nerves, sharp and blinding. He gasped, nearly screaming, but he gritted his teeth. He could feel the sickness in the child's veins, a burning, twisting energy that tried to tear the tiny body apart. The sensation traveled into him. Every nerve felt on fire. His muscles twitched uncontrollably. Sweat poured down his face. His vision blurred. He felt like he was falling into endless darkness, but he held on. He felt the child twitch violently, and Elias's stomach clenched in sympathy and fear. He reminded himself, if he let go, the child would die. If he endured, maybe the child would survive. Minutes passed, or was it hours? Time no longer existed. All he could feel was pain, the child's suffering, and his own heartbeat pounding like a drum. At one point, he almost screamed. But the queen's voice whispered in his mind, soft and steady, as if carried on the crystal walls themselves. You are stronger than you know. Endure. Elias clenched his fists harder. He breathed through the pain. He felt his body burning, but he refused to let the darkness take him. Somewhere deep inside, he remembered the girl who had died in his arms. He remembered his promise. He remembered hope. And for that child, this small alien prince, he would endure anything. He gritted his teeth, feeling the sickness surge again, stronger this time. His vision flickered, his body screamed, but he refused to collapse. The child's glow flickered brighter. Slowly, slowly, the prince began to stabilize. Elias did not know if he could survive the next wave. But he knew he could not stop. He had endured for years to survive. Now, he endured to save a life not his own, and in that act, he discovered something he had never known. True courage is not the absence of fear, it is the will to endure for someone else. The hum of the machines filled the chamber like a low, living heartbeat. Elias felt the energy pulse through his body, carrying every wave of the child's sickness into his nerves. Each surge was sharper than the last, burning like molten metal sliding through his veins. His teeth clenched, his knuckles went white, but he refused to cry out. Every scream he swallowed became a shield for the small, fragile prince. The child trembled in the cradle, tiny hands curling and uncurling. Elias could feel the sickness, trying to rip the little body apart, and with every pulse, the pain struck him instead. His muscles spasmed, his chest ached, and his vision blurred into a haze of red and white light. He gasped for air, as if drowning in fire, yet he forced himself to remain conscious. The queen stood behind the observing glass, silent but watching. Her silver skin reflected the glow of the chamber, her expression unreadable yet taut with tension. For centuries, she had faced enemies, rebellions, and invasions. Yet now, in this moment, she trembled as she watched a human endure agony she could not even imagine. "Stop it, please!" she shouted once, her voice cracking with fear and desperation. But Elias shook his head violently, muffling the scream lodged in his throat. "I won't stop," he whispered, voice broken but steady. The doctor monitored the readings carefully. Sweat dripped down her forehead. He's holding on, she murmured to no one in particular. It's impossible. No human should survive this. Elias felt every pain of the child transferred into himself. Fever, burning, shivering. Muscle convulsions, every cell screamed. His vision flickered in and out, darkness closing at the edges. He felt his consciousness slipping, the kind of darkness he had faced drifting through space alone, but he refused to let it claim him. And all the while, the child was alive. Weakly alive, but alive. Somewhere deep inside, Elias remembered the faces of the humans he had lost, the evacuation ships, the screams, the empty bunkers, the small, fragile hands of his little sister slipping from his grasp. He had survived for himself for so long. But now he realized survival had a new meaning. It was no longer about being alive, it was about giving life to another. Pain surged through him again, sharper, stronger, as if the sickness itself realized he was holding it back. Elias felt fire crawl through his nerves, spreading to his spine, his chest, his limbs. His body buckled in the chair, but he held on. He gritted his teeth so hard that he could taste iron, and whispered through the burning in his lungs, "You're going to live. You're going to survive." The child whimpered softly, and a tiny movement made Elias's heart clench. The small fingers flexed weakly, reaching as if trying to touch him. He wanted to hold him, to comfort him, but he could only imagine the warmth of his hand in the cradle, his energy tethered through pain. Minutes, hours' time no longer existed. Pain became a rhythm, a cruel cadence he had no choice but to follow. Every nerve in his body screamed. Every breath burned. But he endured. Because the little life in front of him deserved more than he had endured for himself. The queen watched with tears sliding silently down her silver cheeks. For the first time in her long reign, she felt the raw, unstoppable power of humanity. She had led empires, wielded armies, and crushed worlds, but this human, this frail, battered creature, was performing something far greater than war. He was giving his body, his strength, his very existence, to save a life not his own. Elias felt his vision dim, darkness creeping closer. His muscles were trembling beyond control. The taste of blood filled his mouth from the strain. He should have collapsed. He should have screamed. Every instinct told him to let go, but he didn't. With a final surge of strength, he braced himself against the chair, gritting his teeth, breathing through the fire, clinging to life as the sickness's last waves coursed through him. And slowly, miraculously, he felt the energy ease. The child's breathing became steadier, less fragile. The glow in the small body strengthened, flickering like a candle that refused to die. Elias slumped in the chair, body trembling, soaked in sweat, every nerve screaming, but alive. He had endured pain beyond any measure, beyond human or alien understanding, and the child lived because of it. The queen exhaled a long, shivering breath. She covered her face with one hand, tears spilling freely. The impossible had happened. A human had defied every limit and survived. Elias did not smile. Not yet. His body felt broken, raw, and almost alien in its own suffering. But he had done it. He had saved a life. And in that moment, the Varrock's empire began to see humanity in a way it had never seen before. A human was not just fragile, not just a survivor. A human could endure everything for someone else. A human could be a hero. Elias's body was trembling uncontrollably, his skin slick with sweat, his muscles screaming from the strain. Every nerve felt like it had been stretched to its breaking point. Yet, even as the queen and the doctors prepared for the worst, he opened his eyes. He was alive. Not just alive, he had endured, and the small alien prince was breathing steadily in his cradle. For the first time since he had been summoned, Elias looked around the chamber. The queen stood silently, her hands trembling, silver eyes wide with awe. She had expected a human to falter. Every report she had ever received about humanity had warned her of weakness, fear, and cowardice. Yet here was Elias Grant, a single human, who had survived the impossible. He did it," whispered the royal doctor, her voice still heavy with disbelief. No human should have survived that. But he held on. He endured everything. Elias's chest heaved as he tried to breathe normally. He could feel every ache in his body, the raw burn of pain still lingering in his muscles, the fatigue that weighed down his limbs like stone. Yet he didn't look away from the tiny child before him. The prince's faint glow pulsed softly, the steady rise and fall of his chest, a promise that he had survived. The queen stepped closer, lowering herself so she was at Elias's level. For centuries, she had stood above everyone, commanding, powerful, untouchable. But now she knelt. Her voice was quieter, softer, almost human. Why? Why did you endure this? She asked, her words trembling. You had every right to stop. Every right to let him die. Elias swallowed hard. Pain still tore at him with every breath. He could barely speak, but he forced the words out. No child deserves to die alone, he said, voice rough and broken. I've seen enough death to know that. And I couldn't let him suffer. Not like that. The Queen's eyes filled with tears. She had expected humans to be selfish, to flee or fight for their own survival, to care only for their kind. But Elias, he had done the impossible. He had endured untold pain for the sake of someone he did not know, someone not even of his species. Silence fell over the chamber. Even the floating lights seemed to dim, as if the entire hall understood what had happened. The child's breathing grew stronger, steadier, and Elias felt a small warmth of relief. His hands, still trembling, hovered near the cradle. He didn't need to touch the prince to feel the life pulsing there. Fragile but unbroken, the Queen's voice was quieter now, almost a whisper. But it carried more weight than the roar of an entire army. Human, you have changed everything. You have shown us the strength of your kind. Not your strength in battle, not your survival, but your heart. Elias shook his head, trying to clear the haze of exhaustion and pain. I'm just a human, he muttered. I did what anyone should do. I just did what had to be done. No, the Queen said firmly, placing her hand over her chest. You endured more than any human has ever endured. You survived pain no one else could survive. You gave life where there should have been death. You have become something more than we imagined. Elias's lips trembled. He had seen death up close, had stared into the eyes of the dead and felt the emptiness of survival without purpose. And now, for the first time in years, he felt something more. Pride, yes, but also hope. Hope that life could still mean something, even in a galaxy that had been so cruel. The royal doctor approached again, her tone careful but respectful. We must continue monitoring the prince, but the worst is over. Thanks to you, he has a chance. Elias closed his eyes briefly, exhaustion threatening to overtake him. He had given everything he had. His body screamed in protest. But he had also given life. That, he realized, was stronger than any pain, stronger than any suffering. The Queen reached out, hesitating before placing her hand lightly on his shoulder. It was a gesture she had never given to anyone before. You are a human, she said softly. But today, you are more than a human. You are our bridge, our hope. Elias opened his eyes and looked at her. Despite the pain, despite the fear and the weight of everything he had endured, he smiled faintly. For the first time, he felt that maybe humanity was not weak. Maybe they were not alone. The small prince stirred again, opening one bright silver eye. Elias felt a surge of emotion he could barely contain. He had faced death, and now he had given life, and in that moment, the Varrock's empire began to see humanity not as a dying species to be hunted or studied, but as a force of courage, of endurance, of heart. Elias did not know what the future held. He did not know if the Queen would reward him, or if he would ever be free again. But one thing he knew with every fiber of his being, he had endured. He had not broken. And he had saved a life. For the first time in a long time, he felt unstoppable. Elias awoke to a quiet room, his body sore, muscles trembling, and every nerve still buzzing from the treatment. He expected chains. He expected anger. He expected punishment. After all, he had been a human among aliens, and humans were rarely treated with anything other than suspicion or cruelty. Instead, he saw the Queen standing at the foot of the bed. She was without armor, without the intimidating presence that had first terrified him. She looked smaller somehow, softer, human even, though her skin still glowed faintly in the dim light. For a moment, neither spoke. Elias felt the weight of the silence pressing down on him. His body ached, but his heart felt lighter than it had in years. The little prince, alive and resting peacefully in a floating cradle, was the proof that he had endured, that he had not broken. Finally, the Queen spoke. Her voice was low, quiet, yet full of an authority that demanded attention. Elias Grant, you have done what no Varrock has ever done. You survived the unbearable. You saved my child when even my people could not. Elias tried to nod, but his neck and shoulders refused to cooperate. It wasn't about me. It was about him. I couldn't let him die. She knelt beside the bed, her silver eyes meeting his. For centuries, she had ruled as a queen, feared and respected across galaxies. But now, in front of a single human, she looked vulnerable, almost humble. "You do not understand," she said. "You have changed more than a life today. You have changed hearts. You have changed an empire." Elias shook his head weakly. "I'm just a human. I do what I have to do. That's all." The queen reached out, hesitating before placing a hand on his shoulder. The touch was light, gentle, yet it carried the weight of centuries of power. "No," she said firmly. "You are more than that. Humans are more than that. Today, you showed us a truth we had forgotten. Strength is not measured by firepower or fleets. Strength is measured by courage, by heart, by the will to endure for another." Elias closed his eyes, feeling a strange mix of exhaustion and pride. He had endured so much, had suffered pain beyond any measure, but all of it now seemed meaningful. The child's life was proof that what he had done mattered. The queen took a deep breath, her voice softer now. "I cannot undo what was done to your people. I cannot bring back Earth, but I can offer you a choice. Stay, live among us. Guide us, help us change. Help my people see what humanity can truly be." Elias blinked. He had expected punishment, exile, or worse. But this? An invitation, respect, even trust. From the queen herself. He had never dreamed of such a thing. He looked toward the small prince, sleeping peacefully. The child's fragile life, now protected and stable, rested in the balance of his choices. Elias realized that what he endured had earned him something far greater than survival. He had earned a chance to belong, to be part of a future bigger than himself. He began, voice trembling. "I don't know what to say." The queen smiled faintly, a rare expression that softened her sharp features. "You do not need to say anything. Only know this. Your actions have saved more than a life today. You have saved hope. You have reminded us that even the smallest heart can change the world." Elias swallowed hard, his eyes drifting to the floating cradle. He had endured pain, fear, and the very brink of death. He had fought for a child who was not his own. He had suffered beyond what anyone thought a human could endure. And now he had earned trust and respect, not because of power, but because of courage. The queen stood, giving him a small bow. It was a gesture of respect, something he had never imagined a ruler like her could offer to a human. "Consider my offer," she said softly. "And remember, humanity's greatest strength is not its weapons. It is its heart. You have proven that beyond doubt." Elias exhaled, letting the weight of the moment settle on him. He looked at the small prince, at the queen, at the room filled with strange alien machines and soft glowing light. And for the first time in years, he felt hope. He did not yet answer her offer. Not aloud. But in his heart, he knew one thing with clarity. He had endured the impossible. He had survived when death had been certain. He had saved a life. And he had discovered something greater than survival. Humanity was not weak. Humanity could endure. Humanity could hope, and perhaps, just perhaps, humanity could teach an empire to believe in the impossible.